So next up, Simon from IBM. IBM has a great platform where what you can use to build blockchain applications. They have a lot of knowledge on the enterprise environment. As you can imagine, IBM, I mean, they're not only advancing on AI like Watson, but they also serve all these current companies we're using, whether it's a bank or an energy company or a hospital, with the core enterprise systems. So imagine your interest is over there, and then there's this whole system emerging, and it's really cool that IBM basically stepped into this space and yeah, also got this blockchain ball rolling. Simon, can you tell us more about the platform and what IBM is working on? Thank you.
Definitely, thank you. Can everyone hear me? Yes, good. Okay, I was stuck at the front, so I couldn't see when the hands go up when the questions were asked. Who's a developer in the room? Oh, that's brilliant. Okay, who knows JavaScript? Oh, yes. Okay, perfect. My name is Simon Stone. Thank you for the introduction. I'm a lead engineer at IBM, but I'm also a maintainer of the Hyperledger Composer project, and I think that's a project that's going to interest you the most. But before we get there, IBM over the last couple of years has spoken to hundreds of clients about blockchain, explaining the technology and how it might apply to them, but we've also looked at a significant number of use cases. And when we took all those use cases together and sort of analyzed them, we saw that they all had some key concepts that apply to every use case. And the first one was that we saw that all of these blockchain use cases were about business networks. Companies coming together to share data. And that data is usually assets. Assets might be vehicles, might be contracts, might be a box of pineapples. It could be any kind of asset that you might have. And transactions describe how the parties in those business networks exchange those assets amongst each other. And we call those parties participants. And those participants could be people like you and me. They could be groups, or they could be entire organizations. But we refer to those as participants. And contracts, or smart contracts, as we like to call them in the blockchain space, define the rules about who is able to exchange what assets and what conditions must be in place for those transactions to occur. The blockchain provides an immutable ledger, and that provides the log of all of the transactions that have occurred in a business network. Marta fortunately introduced it for me, but Hyperledger Fabric is one of the blockchain technologies under the Hyperledger project, and it's one that IBM looks at the most. And it provides a technical foundation for building blockchain business networks. It has smart contracts or chain code for describing the rules of a business network. The input data to the transaction gets recorded in an immutable ledger, and the outputs of the transaction, whether that's new bits of data or records of new assets, get stored in a world state database. But you can also publish events from the blockchain, and you can trigger activity in downstream systems. Hyperledger Fabric version 1 was released earlier this year by the community, and they've been delivering regular fix packs since then. And in order to build applications with Hyperledger Fabric, which is something some of you in the room may be considering for the hackathon that's coming up, it provides sets of APIs. There are APIs for writing smart contracts, currently in Go, but JavaScript is coming along, and APIs for writing client applications, and that's in JavaScript. However, these APIs provide a very low level of abstraction. Anyone that has looked at blockchain before will find it quite a technical experience. You get, basically on the smart contract side, you get access to a key value store. You get to put data in, and you get to put data out. But it's quite hard to take your business use case and map it into running code in a short period of time without having to understand the technology. And along with the use cases, IBM spent a lot of time looking at existing smart contracts or chain code that had been built by people around the world. And we found that there was a lot of guff in there. We had boilerplate code for error handling. Everyone had to write their own code for it. It's a bit naff. Their own RPC interface, so the communications between the clients and the smart contract itself. And on top of that, they had to write their own data validation code as well to check that the right inputs were being sent into the smart contract. They had to write their own access control logic as well. The important bit of a smart contract, the business logic, was really being lost in between all of this boilerplate code. So when we saw this, we went away and we came up with Hyperledger Composer. And Hyperledger Composer sort of flips the blockchain development model around. It allows you to, instead of starting at the bottom, that raw blockchain layer, it lets you take your business use case, model it, so you can describe what your blockchain use case looks like using the Composer modeling tools, and then allows you to easily build applications that interact with that blockchain network. We record all of the data in the network in something we call a registry. So when you create an asset, we'll store it on the blockchain for you. When you create a participant or when you submit a transaction, it's all recorded on the blockchain. And we also have some tools that allow you to easily integrate your existing systems. Lots of companies looking at blockchain have been around for a long time. They have lots of legacy software built up. And they need a way to get the data from that software into the blockchain, and then out of the blockchain and into the existing software. And we have some tools that enable them to do that. So I'm nearly at the end of the slides. You'll be happy to hear. And I'm going to show you a demo. And I'm going to cover most of the core features of Hyperledger Composer. We have a data modeling language, which allows you to describe your blockchain business network. We have some Java, the ability to write your business logic as just standard JavaScript, which is why I asked the question. Anyone that knows JavaScript can use Composer to build a blockchain solution. We have a web-based playground for learning Composer, trying it out, all from within your web browser. And it's zero install. If you go to the website, you'll find it. You can start hacking on it straight away. We've got some client libraries for Node.js for building applications. We've got some plugins for some popular editors. If you're not familiar with them, those are the logos for Atom and Visual Studio Code. We've got some syntax highlighting and things like that. We have a command line. We have some code generation. That's pretty cool. In a matter of seconds, we can generate a running UI application to interact with your blockchain network. And finally, we have some integration capabilities, and those are built on open standards, Swagger, Loopback. So on to the demo. And we're going to look at a blockchain business network that looks at the life cycle of a vehicle as it moves between different participants. And you'll see 6 of them on the screen. From top left, we've got Alex, who works at the Agency for Vehicle Standards, checking that the vehicles are roadworthy. We've got Paul, who's just interested in buying a vehicle from the dealership. We've got Debbie, who works at the vehicle regulator, ensuring people pay their road tax, that kind of thing. We have Tommen, who works at the insurer, who wants to check that all the vehicles are properly insured. We have Mike, who works at Arium Logistics, a fictional manufacturer of vehicles. Think BMW or Audi, that kind of thing. And then Vada, who works at the police, who's checking for potential crime. And they're all going to be looking at the same blockchain network. They're going to be sharing data on that network. But because we believe in permissioned blockchain networks, they're only going to be able to see data that they're permissioned to access. So Paul doesn't even need to care that there's a blockchain underpinning the system. He's just walking into a dealership to buy a vehicle. Mike certainly needs to have access to all the data about the vehicles that Arium have manufactured. And Debbie needs full access. She needs to be able to see all of the activity as the regulator that is occurring in this business network. The other participants around the edge will also have their own permissions to see data. And for the purposes of this demo, we're just going to focus on 3 participants and a short bit of the life cycle of a vehicle. Paul is going to buy a vehicle from Mike at Arium, all the way, and we're going to track the life cycle of that vehicle from it being ordered in a dealership through the factory floor, all the way through to delivery back to Paul. And Debbie, our regulator, is going to oversee the whole process by looking at the data shared on the blockchain. Paul's going to use a mobile app. Arium are super trendy. They have a mobile-first experience for ordering vehicles. Mike, as I mentioned before, these companies have been around for a while, so he's probably been building cars for about 20 years. Blockchain's new, but he's not going to throw away his existing system, so he's going to use the integration capabilities to move his factory floor data into the blockchain. And finally, Debbie, she's got access to all of this data, but she can't just sit there reading it on a screen, so she's going to use tools like analytics toolings to look for potential infringements in regulations. So, enough slides. Here we have our free applications. So we have our mobile application that Paul is going to use to order a vehicle. We have our manufacturing dashboard that Mike is going to use to inspect the vehicles that are being ordered. And finally, we have Debbie's regulatory dashboard, where she can inspect everything that is occurring in the blockchain network. You can see blocks and transactions. In Mike's dashboard, there's 2 cars there earlier whilst I was testing the demo. But let's kick it off by ordering a new vehicle. So we'll play the part of Paul. We'll use the mobile application. We'll build a car. We'll go for the Arium Nova. This is where it gets interactive, so shout out. Standard or executive trim? Executive, of course. No one ever picks standard trim. It's really... Color, gone. We got a whole range. Red. I heard red. OK. How about the interior color? Brown. You can't have red paint and red seats. That's just, no. Extended warranty, tinted windows? Are you sure you don't want the extended warranty? These Ariums are really quite... You can have both, yeah? I'm a great salesman. Now we've selected all the options, the yellow button at the bottom is lit up. And when we click that button, we're going to submit a transaction to the blockchain to say that, yes, we're ordering this vehicle. Here are the details of it. We'll click the button. And the mobile application goes into the pending state. The order's been recorded on that blockchain network. And Paul now has to sit there watching the screen, waiting for his car to be built. If we switch to Mike's manufacturing dashboard, we'll see that the order instantly appears. It's ready to be manufactured. And he can, at this point, inspect the order, check it's OK, and then kick off the manufacturing process. More importantly, though, Debbie, the regulator, has instant insight into the fact that the order has been placed. Because she's got access to the blockchain network, she can capture the event that says, hey, an order's been placed, and it instantly appears in her dashboard. We can see the top 2 lines. They occurred just after 4 p.m. to record the fact that that order has been placed. And she can execute some logic on the back of that to check, oh, is this order valid? Is this guy suspicious? But he's not, for the purposes of this demo. So we'll take our Paul hat off now. We're going to put the Mike hat on, and we're going to kick off the manufacturing process. Unfortunately, this bit requires a lot of imagination. I don't have a factory floor. You're not getting a new car. But as that vehicle starts moving through our factory floor, we're going to start submitting events to the blockchain to record events, like the chassis being made, the VIN number being stamped into that chassis, it going through the paint shop. And you'll start seeing the red dots start turning to green as these events occur. Paul's mobile application updates as well to show his order is progressing. But again, more importantly, Debbie, our regulator, gets instant insight into the life cycle of the vehicle as it starts moving through the floor. She doesn't have to wait for the piece of paper to turn up several weeks later from Arium to tell her, a new vehicle's been ordered, here's the details. She can see it happening in near to real time, all the way through to the last transaction, which says, delivered. You can see that the order in Mike's dashboard goes into the complete state. He's done at this point. And if we scroll down to the bottom of the mobile application, the yellow button lights up to say it's been delivered. So that's the end of the demo. Now, this demo is important for 2 things. It's a great use case, and it's easy to explain to people. But it's also great because we were able to build it in a really short period of time. And to build this, we did not get blockchain people in to build it. We took 2 of our new grads. They had some JavaScript skills, and we set them away with our Hyperledger Composer tooling. And they started off in this tool. This is the Hyperledger Composer Playground. It's open source. You can download it. We've got a great website where you can go and get the install instructions and follow some tutorials. And they started off by modeling their business network. They took the use case around vehicle life cycles. They took the descriptions of the assets and the participants and the transactions that are occurring in that business network. And they modeled them using the Composer modeling language. Let me try and zoom in a bit. Hopefully you can read that, but we've described an order asset, right? We said, hey, in this business network, there is an asset of type order, and it has a set of properties. Quickly go over this. We've got the details of the vehicle, the current status of the order, an array of status updates, And these funny dash greater than things, and these are relationships. It allows you to link assets to participants. For example, an asset has an owner who is a participant in the network, and you can model all of that in the Composer modeling language. You can model transactions, events, and participants. And there's data validation rules you can add, optionals. We got a full class hierarchy as well. You can do things like extends. So it's really easy to take a business use case and map it into the Composer modeling language. And you don't necessarily need a developer to do that, although most people probably will. But the line of business people can start getting involved, start looking at the models to understand and validate that the developers are doing the right thing. Once they've done that, once they've gone through the modeling process, they need to start implementing the business logic that occurs when transactions occur in this blockchain network. And as I said, they do that using standard JavaScript code. So remember the button that Paul pressed in the mobile application to submit the order? It ran this JavaScript function on a blockchain network. It ran across multiple nodes. They all executed the JavaScript code, and they all had to agree on the output of the transaction. And it's a fairly simple API. We get a factory object. We create a new instance of an order asset. We fill out the properties of it. And then we add it to an asset registry, which records it on the blockchain. And then we emit an event to say, hey, a new order has been placed. And that's all you need to do to write the smart contract bit. You model your business network, you write your business logic using JavaScript, and you deploy that to a running blockchain network, for example, Hyperledger Fabric. Now, you can use the Playground tool to test as well. It's got a whole bunch of functionality. For example, if we go to the order asset, we'll see all of our orders that I put through the system. And you can use the tool to start playing around and testing your blockchain business network. Now, if you don't like our web playground, we won't be insulted. We do have editor plugins. So if I hopefully switch to my next tab. So we've got a plugin for Visual Studio Code. It's got syntax highlighting and code completion for working on Composer business network definitions. You can see here's a modeling file from our Hello World sample. Of course, you can use JavaScript in your favorite editor. We have access control rules for defining who can do what in a business network. You can do that through the VS Code plugin as well. And we also have unit testing capability. And you can do this using any JavaScript unit testing framework, for example, Mocha. But we're quite a big fans of Cucumber and BDD-style testing, where you get to write tests in something resembling plain English, where you just say, hey, given this participant does this, this asset gets created. And you can do that all using Composer. Now, once you've modeled the blockchainy bits, the business network, you've done the modeling, you've written the business logic, and you've deployed it, it becomes a running business network. But that's no good. Blockchain smart contracts are no good without applications to interact with them. And to build applications, you need APIs. Now, because you took the time to model your blockchain network, we can generate RESTful APIs for you. You just run one command. You say, hey, where's this business network running, and what's it called? And then we go away, we inspect the model files, and we generate a RESTful API. You can see it on the screen. This is Swagger UI. People will have probably seen this before. It's all built using Swagger tooling. It's a common open standard for defining REST APIs. And for each type you describe in your business network, you get an API for it. You get an API around all of the orders, all of the participants, so the manufacturer participant, and APIs around transactions as well. And it also has WebSockets for subscribing to events. And using this REST API, it's just the standard REST API. I'm pretty sure everyone here has interacted with a REST API at some point in their life to build an application. And this is no different. You can use any HTTP or REST client to start building applications that interact with a blockchain network. Now, I mentioned that existing systems aren't going away anytime soon. And we're a big fan of integration tooling. Half of the IBM Hersley team have come from integration. And this is Node-RED. It's an open source integration tool for linking different systems together. And you do it by building these flows. At the top is a flow that takes data from a WebSocket. And if we scroll over to the right, you'll see this with our friends, the Conga blocks on the end. And that is a Composer node. It submits a transaction to the blockchain. So you can easily take data from a WebSocket and route it to the blockchain. The next flow below receives an event from the blockchain, does a little bit of transformation, and then routes it to a WebSocket. And you can use this tool without necessarily having to write any code. It's just drag and drop and connect all the wires up. It's really easy to bring your existing systems into place. Now, I did mention that we have a tool for generating applications as well. So if I switch to the command line, it has a really cool command line. You just say, yo. So built using Yeoman, if anyone's come across it. You say, hey, I want to use the Hyperledger Composer generator. I want to generate an Angular application. Answer some questions, name, description, blah. The name of the business network card, which is basically where is my blockchain business network, and what's it called? Generate a new API. Yes. And it goes off and it generates a set of Angular components for that blockchain business network. Off it runs, an npm install, which I prepared earlier to save some time. And ta-da! A fully functional UI application that allows you to work with your blockchain network. It's got a table for all of the different types of assets and forms for interacting with those. So a form for adding an asset, a form for updating an asset, and a nice button for deleting an asset. Now, it's pretty ugly, I'll agree, but any UI developer should be able to take that as a great example of how to interact with the blockchain and then shape it to your user experience requirements. Okay, how am I doing for time? Oh, not bad. So back to the slides. So I do work for IBM. I do have to sell you something. So far I've spoken to you about Hyperledger technologies. And we've taken those technologies and we packaged them up, and we're delivering a cloud-managed service of Hyperledger Fabric and the Hyperledger Composer that we call the IBM Blockchain Platform. And we believe it's the best place to run your blockchain solutions. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, given you're all developers and probably don't care. But it has three main components. The first one is develop, tools for building your blockchain solution. The second one is govern, tools for setting up democratic networks where you can vote on what happens in a network. You can vote to create new channels. You can vote to deploy smart contracts. And tools for operating your blockchain networks as well, managing your nodes, restarting them, upgrading them, etc. But the one important point or part of the IBM blockchain platform for you developers there is something we call the Developer Sandbox, which is a free way to stand up a blockchain network on the IBM cloud. It provides a configured Hyperledger Fabric network and a configured Hyperledger Composer that connects to it. And you can sign up for free, you can deploy it, and you can have a running blockchain in the cloud in about 30 minutes. So a great place to start doing your development. Anyway, sales pitch over. We've got some links, but we're pretty easy to find. Just Google Hyperledger Composer or Hyperledger Fabric or IBM Blockchain. But if you've got any questions about the Hyperledger tooling, you can come and chat to us. So we're live on Rocket Chat. If anyone's used Slack, Rocket Chat is a slightly worse alternative to it. But there's a couple of channels in there that you can use to chat to the team. We're very responsive. And we also have some Stack Overflow tags as well if you want to ask us questions without having to wait for us to reply on Rocket Chat. So I'm going to say thank you, but it's not quite finished. Just to give you another reason to go looking for Hyperledger Composer, we're writing comics, or at least Ed in our team is writing comics, and they're called the Conga comics. So if you go and find Hyperledger Composer, buried somewhere deep in the release notes, you will find the links to a whole series of these comics. I recommend you check them out. Anyway, thank you very much.